Talk to us a little bit about the current environment and whether we're on a trajectory upwards and how long that can last.
Well, we are on a trajectory upwards, there's no question. In the last 6 years or so, there's been a lot of cleaning up. I was part of the cleaning up, and there's been a lot of regulation, and there's been some really good origination. So the quality of new loans has been really very good in the last 4 or 5 years. So as far as the trajectory is concerned, this is where it really gets interesting because rates are going up.
Yep.
And housing affordability is a challenge. There are fewer mortgages likely to happen in the foreseeable future before it gets better. And so the quality of lending is really important at this point in the cycle.
What is the role of some of the larger banks and their mortgage originations versus independent firms like yourself? How has that landscape changed over the past decade?
Well, as you know, clearly a lot of the large banks have pulled back, and so a lot of non-banks have stepped in. I will say, though, that the quality of the non-banks post-crisis is substantially different to the quality of non-banks pre-crisis. In fact, the quality of mortgage lending, even in banks post-crisis, is very different to what it was pre-crisis. And so non-banks now have become, particularly the stronger ones, are really well capitalized. They have professional management teams and good leadership, and we care a lot about the quality of risk and the quality of lending because we've seen it all, and you know how it can all go wrong pretty quickly.
From a regulatory standpoint, how well calibrated right now are the sort of requirements for mortgages, and do you think there's still a need for some loosening in terms of the ease with which you can originate mortgages?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think that there has been a very intense form of regulation in the last several years. And I think to some extent that was required because of how bad things had gone with respect to lending. But I feel like there is this balance that is now coming back in terms of really understanding the quality of risk as opposed to just this very single-minded view of regulating the industry. So I think that pendulum is gradually beginning to come back to the right.
Right. There's more nuance now than there was in the years right after the crisis.
Yes.
You've mentioned that regulation doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be valuable for both the industry and the end user, the consumer. Give us some examples of regulation that is in tune with the housing market right now and works in both parties' favor.
Yeah, so I mean, I think about consumer protection, and it's been much talked about in the last 10 years. And I'm a big advocate of consumer protection. I believe that some of the things that the regulators and the consumer protection agencies put in place around making sure that certain types of products were not sort of in the safe harbor, in my opinion, was the right thing to do, the right set of rules to play by. The whole idea of making sure that consumers have that lenders ensure that consumers have the ability to repay, or the ATR rule is completely aligned. I mean, how basic is that, right? To make sure that lenders actually lend to somebody who has the ability to repay. I almost feel embarrassed that it had to be regulated upon us, but it has been, and it's been a good thing for us.